So I get asked this question a lot of times. Rashim, how do you deal with imposter syndrome as an immigrant woman in leadership? And I get it because I've lived it. When I first moved to the US and started leading global teams in technology, I carried this invisible pressure to prove that I belonged, to work twice as hard, to sound right, to never show uncertainty. I thought that's what success looked like, but all it did was that it fed into this quiet voice in my head that whispered, "You don't belong here." That voice, that imposter syndrome, is common for so many immigrant women. It's not just a passing doubt, it's a daily background noise. And in today's video, I want to share with you what imposter syndrome really looks like in our context, in context of immigrant women in technology. It's not a personal flaw. How do you start shifting your mindset to lead with confidence and calm? Addressing that imposter syndrome is going to be the theme of today's video. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, now is the right time to go ahead and click that subscribe button so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video. We often describe imposter syndrome as feeling like a fraud, even when we are qualified. But for many immigrant women, it runs deeper. It's shaped by years of cultural conditioning, where humility is valued over visibility, where we are told not to brag about our work. And then when we enter workplaces where self-advocacy is rewarded, suddenly everything that we were taught feels like a mismatch. So imposter syndrome is not just about self-doubt. It's tension between the two worlds, one that raised us and one that we are leading in. And why it hits immigrant women more is because there's an extra layer, there's an added layer when you are an immigrant. You're not just navigating gender bias, you're also navigating accent bias, cultural bias, and sometimes also visa status and anxiety around it. You're decoding unspoken norms while performing your 120%, 130%, 150% as compared to your coworkers. I remember sitting in the meetings early on in my career, being the only person of color in technology and questioning every single word before I said it. And even after successful presentations and successful projects, my mind always thought, was it just luck? Did they go easy on me? It took years for me to realize that it wasn't the reflection of my ability, it was the reflection of the system I was operating in. It took me years to realize that this imposter syndrome wasn't the reflection of my ability, it was a reflection of the system that I was operating in. And that's the first mindset shift. Imposter syndrome does not mean that you are inadequate. It means that you're showing up in spaces that weren't built for your identity in mind. For me, the turning point came when I stopped chasing fitting in and started focusing on creating impact. There was a moment, and I still remember it, I was preparing to present to senior executives at Oracle, and that familiar imposter syndrome voice came up and said, "Are you sure you should be leading this?" But instead of trying to silence that voice, I said to myself, "I'm nervous, but I'm also prepared, and my perspective is valuable." That shift from proving to contributing changed everything for me. And from that day on, I made a commitment to myself to show up as myself. Accent, background, lived experiences, all of it. Because authenticity, I realized, creates connection, and connection creates influence. Here are 3 mindset reframes that I now teach my clients or people whom I mentor. First is that your self-doubt doesn't mean that you lack capability. It means that you're pushing into growth phase. Every leader that I see around me, people whom I admire, whether they are men or women, they still feel at edge when they are evolving. The second mindset shift over here is that you're not an imposter, you're a bridge. You bring perspectives shaped by different cultures, values, and ways of thinking. That's not a weakness. It's just superpower in this global workplace. And the third one is that confidence isn't about knowing everything. It's about trusting that you can figure it out. You already have navigated much complex transitions, new countries, new systems, new languages. If you have done that, you can easily handle this. And while mindset is all great, there's action required also. And here are a few simple habits that can help you quiet that inner critic, your imposter syndrome. First is keeping an impact journal. Every week, write down how you created value. Value for your organization, value for the community, and value for the country that you live in. A project that you led, some feedback that you received, a problem that you solved. And over time, you'll build enough evidence that counters self doubt. Second is borrow belief. Find mentors or peers who remind you of your strength when you forget it. Confidence is contagious. Sometimes you just need to be around people who can pull you up in those moments of doubt and remind you of your superpowers, of your capabilities. And then practice visible gratitude. And this is important. When someone acknowledges you for your work, don't deflect. Say, thank you, I worked hard on that. That simple sentence rewires your brain to own its achievements. And what it does is, in those moments of doubt, when you yourself question your ability, it plays that back to you. It plays all those successes back to you. And that's important. When you shift the question from, am I good enough? Am I enough in this space? To, what do I want to create today? You move out of that zone of fear and feeling like an imposter into a zone of purpose. And leaders who operate from a place of purpose stop comparing and start building. They realize that their job isn't about being perfect, it's about contributing meaningfully. And when you operate from that space, the imposter syndrome loses its power. That inner critique of yours loses its power, and you operate from a place of strength and confidence. So, my dear friends, if you ever felt like you don't belong, remember that you're not alone. Imposter syndrome doesn't mean that you're less capable, it means that you're growing beyond your comfort zone. And if you are an immigrant woman leading in today's world, you already embody a lot of resilience, adaptability, and courage. You've moved continents and countries to be here where you are. You belong not in spite of your story, but because of it. Now, here's the thing, I want to hear your story. Which of these resonated the most with you? And are you willing to share your story with the community so that they learn from your experiences? Go ahead, type your stories in the comments below. We all will draw inspiration from your story. And if you found this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe. Your subscription means the world to me, and your input helps me create content that brings value to each one of us in the community. I'll see you next week. Till then, have a successful week. Bye-bye.